I don't know. What do you think? Like they were just sitting here. I saw on this rock next to me some bones. These better be animal bones for sure, right? I don't know. What do you think? Like they were just sitting here. Four teens from Sioux Falls, South Dakota were brutally murdered by three brothers. How on earth did this happen? And the real question, why? Welcome back to another episode. My name's Harmon. Today we find ourselves near the border of South Dakota and Iowa at the Gitchie Manitou State Preserve, just over the border into Iowa. On the evening of November 17th, 1973, 5 teenagers were hanging out at the Gitchie Manitou State Preserve here in Iowa. They were hanging out, they had a campfire, enjoying their time here. Unfortunately, 3 brothers decided to shoot and kill them. 4 of the 5 teenagers were shot and killed. The 5th, she was raped, but she survived. So the 4 teenagers that were killed were 17-year-old Roger Essom, 18-year-old Stuart Batty, 14-year-old Dana Batty, 15-year-old Michael Hadrath, and like I mentioned, the 5th teenager, she survived, but she was brutally raped. Her name was Sandra Chesky, and she was 13. And you're probably wondering who the perpetrators were. So I mentioned earlier, they were 3 brothers, and those brothers that killed the 4 teenagers, their names were 29-year-old Alan Fryer, 24-year-old David Fryer, and the last brother, 21-year-old James Fryer. So the 3 Fryer brothers came to the Manitou State Preserve to kind of do some illegal poaching of deer. That was kind of their main reason of being here. The 5 teenagers hanging out with the campfire were just hanging out, having a good time. As the 5 teenagers were hanging out by the campfire, Fryers were coming up over the ridge and they saw the teenagers hanging out down here by the campfire. So they sent David Fryer down to kind of investigate and see what was going on. So David snuck around and saw that all the teenagers were hanging out smoking some marijuana, and so he came back to his 2 brothers and reported back to them saying, hey, they're all hanging out, they're all smoking marijuana. So the brothers talked together and decided that they would go and steal the 5 teenagers' marijuana by impersonating some narcotics detectives. Again, sounds like the most ludicrous plan I've ever heard of, but that was their plan. So anyway, so the 3 Fryer brothers went back to their truck, got their shotguns, and came back. They positioned themselves again right over the ridge, and that is when they started firing down with their shotguns at the 5 teenagers. 17-year-old Roger Essom was shot and killed first, and he was killed instantly. 18-year-old Stuart Batty was shot as well, and he was wounded initially. After the first 2 teenagers were shot, the other teenagers booked it into the forest here where I'm sitting right now, and were obviously trying to take cover behind the trees. The Fryers came back around and demanded that all the other teenagers come out of the woods. It's easy for me to kind of talk about it because like hindsight's always 20/20. But if it was me and my 2 friends were just shot and killed, I probably wouldn't come out when someone ordered me to. I would run for my freaking life, and I would trust my running skills over than trying to bargain my way out of whatever the situation was. Anyway, guys, that's just me and my opinion, and of course, hindsight's always 20/20. If the teenagers had some more time, maybe they would have thought the same thing. Michael Hadrath and Sandra Chesky, they came out together and asked who the friars were. The friars started shooting. They shot Michael Hadrath in the arm initially and said they were police officers. Hadrath and Chesky both fell to the ground, I guess pretending to be dead. Alan and David Fryer forced Michael Hadrath, Dana Batty, and Sandra Chesky along the way out of the woods. The only girl, Sandra Chesky, who again survived the whole ordeal, she was tied up and put in the van. Stuart Batty, who again was one of the first ones to be shot, was still wounded at that point, but he was taken and put, I think, next to the van while he was bleeding out. Alan Fryer then drove away in the van by himself with Sandra Chesky, and that is when he drove her somewhere and raped her. But thankfully she was able to get out of there and escape. But that meant that the two other Fryer brothers were left behind with the three remaining teenagers who were still alive at that point. But it wasn't for long, because the other two Fryer brothers, that is when they shot and killed the three remaining teenagers, and that included Stuart Batty, who was already initially injured from the first shotgun blast. So all four teenagers died. So Roger Essam was the first one to be shot and killed. His body was found by the campfire by some hikers. The three remaining teenagers, their bodies were found closer to the road. So I believe the Fryer brothers, all three of them were up here on the ridge, and we're seeing all five teenagers down at their campfire, which I believe was right by the water down there. So the Fryer brothers were kind of staking them out, and they had kind of an advantage because they could look down and see them, while the five teenagers probably couldn't see too well in the dark looking back up the ridge. Alright guys, so I am taking this little pathway through the forest down to the water. This is kind of like my best interpretation of where the five teenagers were, where they were shot and killed. Alright, so I walked around, made it to the lake, and just based on what I read, there wasn't a whole lot of information stating exactly where they were shot and killed. All it says is the three Fryer brothers were on like a perch or ledge, like higher elevation, looking down at them. And so the only kind of spot that fits that description is here at the lake, because we're lower than up on the ridge. So my guess is the five teenagers were all somewhere right here on the little beach, and the Fryer brothers were up on the hill. So it sounds like the five teenagers probably had their campfire potentially somewhere like here, or maybe right there, and the Fryer brothers were up on the trail above, and even in the daylight I can't even see the trail. So that means obviously the Fryer brothers had a way better advantage, like I mentioned. But at nighttime, of course the Fryer brothers could look down and see the campfire and all the people here. But the teenagers, they couldn't see up on that ridge. There'd be no way. So yeah, so the trail is up past that ridge, and again, you can't even see it. So they were somewhere up, the Fryer brothers were somewhere up there looking down, and they probably have the campfire somewhere right there. At the trial, one of the brothers stated that they thought, as narcotics detectives, that they were allowed to shoot and kill anyone who had marijuana. So again, you can kind of see the mindset of the brothers. They obviously did not know much about law enforcement or anything to begin with. On June 18th, 1974, Alan Fryer had his trial for the murders. But just like Ted Bundy, if you saw that video where Ted Bundy escaped twice, the two Fryer brothers escaped. Alan Fryer and David Fryer escaped from the Lyon County Jail. They stole a car and fled the state, going to Wyoming. Thankfully, they were caught and brought back to face the charges. And so after everything was said and done, all three Fryer brothers were given life without parole. Anyway, guys, very crazy story. I was in the area. I was like, hey, I have to do this video about it. I feel like it's interesting. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, if you're new around here, my name's Harmon. I go around the country filming different infamous crimes, infamous events, or people. They don't always have to be super well known. If you have any suggestions about any other infamous crimes or events, let me know in the comment section below. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. My name's Harmon, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.